Greetings to all you mortals existing in a corporeal form, and a capital day to you all. I am your host Simeon, and this is the Library of Gnosis. Seems like alchemists have to hide away deep in the wilderness, far away from society, to do their work. It has always been quite the secret art. I had heard about the saint who lived on a pole for 40 years, even as a child, but I never knew his name. I was searching Wikipedia for the term hermit, as I figured it would be related to Hermes, and when looking at the page, I found the name of this famous hermit who lived on a pole. His name was Simeon Stylites, who was a Syrian Christian ascetic who achieved notability by living 30 to 42 years on a small platform on top of a pillar near Aleppo in modern-day Syria. Several other stylites later followed his model. The Greek word style means pillar. Simeon is venerated as a saint by the Eastern Catholic churches, Oriental Orthodox churches, Eastern Orthodox churches, and Roman Catholic Church. There exist three major early biographies of Simeon. The first of these is by Theodoret, Bishop of Cyrrhus, and is found within his work Religious History. This biography was written during Simeon's lifetime, and Theodoret relates several events of which he claims to have been an eyewitness. The narrator of a second biography names himself as Antonius, a disciple of Simeon's. This work is of unknown date and provenance. The third is a Syriac source, which dates to 473. This is the longest of the three, and the most effusive in its praise of Simeon. It places Simeon on a par with the Old Testament prophets, and portrays him as a founder of the Christian church. The three sources exhibit signs of independent development, although they each follow the same rough outline. They have hardly any narrative episodes in common. Simeon was the son of a shepherd. He was born in Sis, now the Turkish town of Kusan in Adana province. Sis was in the Roman province of Sicilia. After the division of the Roman Empire in 395 AD, Sicilia became part of the Eastern Roman Empire. Christianity took hold quickly there. According to Theodoret, Simeon developed a zeal for Christianity at the age of 13, following a reading of the Beatitudes. He entered a monastery before the age of 16. From the first, he gave himself up to the practice of an austerity so extreme that his brethren judged him to be unsuited to any form of community life. They asked Simeon to leave the monastery. He shut himself up in a hut for 1.5 years, where he passed the whole of the Lent without eating or drinking. When he emerged from the hut, his achievement was hailed as a miracle. He later took to standing continually upright so long as his limbs would sustain him. After 1.5 years in this hut, Simeon sought a rocky eminence on the slopes of what is known as the Sheikh Barakht mountain, part of Mount Simeon. He chose to live within a narrow space, less than 20 meters in diameter. But crowds of pilgrims invaded the area to seek him out, asking his counsel or his prayers, and leaving him insufficient time for his own devotions. This eventually led him to adopt a new way of life. in order to get away from the ever-increasing number of people who came to him for prayers and advice, leaving him little, if any, time for his private austerities. Simeon discovered a pillar which had survived among the ruins in nearby Telanisa, modern-day Talada in Syria, and formed a small platform at the top. He determined to live out his life on this platform. For sustenance, small boys from the nearby village would climb up the pillar and pass him parcels of flatbread and goat's milk. He may also have pulled up food in buckets via a pulley. When monastic elders living in the desert heard about Simeon, who had chosen a new and strange form of asceticism, they wanted to test him to determine whether his extreme feats were founded in humility or pride. They decided to order Simeon, under obedience, to come down from the pillar. They decided that if he disobeyed, they would forcibly drag him to the ground, but if he was willing to submit, they would leave him on his pillar. Simeon displayed complete obedience and humility, and the monks told him to stay where he was. The first pillar that Simeon occupied was little more than 3 meters. He later moved his platform to others, the last in the series reportedly more than 50 meters from the ground. At the top of the pillar was a platform, which is believed to have been about 1 square meter and surrounded by a baluster. Edward Gibbon, in his History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, describes Simeon's life as follows. In this last and lofty station, the Syrian anchoret resisted the heat of 30 summers and the cold of as many winters. Habit and exercise instructed him to maintain his dangerous situation without fear or giddiness, and subsequently to assume the different posture of devotion. He sometimes prayed in an erect attitude, with his outstretched arms in the figure of a cross. But his most familiar practice was that of bending his meager skeleton from the forehead to the feet. And a curious spectator, after numbering 1,244 repetitions, at length desisted from the endless account. The progress of an ulcer in his thigh might shorten, but it could not disturb this celestial life, and the patient hermit expired without descending from his column. Even on the highest of his columns, Simeon was not withdrawn from the world. If anything, the new pillar attracted even more people, both pilgrims who had earlier visited him and sightseers as well. Simeon was available each afternoon to talk with visitors. By means of a ladder, visitors were able to ascend within speaking distance. It is known that he wrote letters, the text of some of which have survived to this day, that he instructed disciples, and that he also lectured to those assembled beneath. He especially preached against profanity and usury. In contrast to the extreme austerity that he practiced, his preachings conveyed temperance and compassion, and was marked with common sense and freedom from fanaticism. Much of Simeon's public ministry, like that of other Syrian ascetics, can be seen as socially cohesive in the context of the Roman East. In the face of the withdrawal of wealthy landowners to the large cities, holy men such as Simeon acted as impartial and necessary patrons and arbiters in disputes between peasant farmers and within the smaller towns. Reports of Simeon reached the church hierarchy and the imperial court. The Emperor Theodosius II and his wife Aelia Eudocia greatly respected Simeon and listened to his counsels, while the Emperor Leo I paid respectful attention to a letter he sent in favor of the Council of Chalcidion. Simeon is also said to have corresponded with the Genevieve of Paris. Patriarch Dominius II, 441 to 448, of Antioch, visited the monk and celebrated the divine liturgy on the pillar. Once, when Simeon was ill, Theodosius sent 3 bishops to beg him to come down and allow himself to be attended to by physicians. But Simeon preferred to leave his cure in the hands of God, and before long, he recovered. A double wall was raised around him to keep the crowd of people from coming too close and disturbing his prayerful concentration. Women were in general not permitted beyond the wall, not even his own mother, whom he reportedly told, "If we are worthy, we shall see one another in the life to come." She submitted to this, remaining in the area, and embraced the monastic life of silence and prayer. When she died, Simeon asked that her coffin be brought to him, and he reverently bade farewell to his dead mother. Accounts differ with regard to how long Simeon lived upon the pillar, with estimates ranging from 35 to 42 years. He died on the 2nd of September, 459. A disciple found his body stooped over in prayer. The Patriarch of Antioch, Martyrius, performed the funeral of the monk before a huge crowd. He was buried not far from the pillar. Simeon inspired many imitators. For the next century, ascetics living on pillars, Stylites, were a common sight throughout the Christian Levant. He is commemorated as a saint in the Coptic Orthodox Church, where his feast is on 29 Pashons. He is commemorated September 1st by the Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches, and the 5th of January in the Roman Catholic Church. A contest arose between Antioch and Constantinople for the possession of Simeon's remains. The preference was given to Antioch, and the greater part of his relics were left there as a protection to the unwalled city. Pilgrim tokens for Simeon Stylites have been found across the Byzantine Empire, attesting to the popularity of his cult. The ruins of the vast edifice erected in his honor, and known in Arabic as the Qalat Saman, the fortress of Simeon, can still be seen. They are located about 30 kilometers northwest of Aleppo and consists of 4 basilicas built out from an octagonal court towards the 4 points of the compass to form a large cross. In the center of the court stands the base of the style or column on which Simeon stood. On the 12th of May 2016, the pillar within the church reportedly took a hit from a missile fired from what appeared to be Russian jets backing the Syrian government. Simeon was known for his healing powers. Many pilgrims, including the sick and the afflicted, would come to his pillar seeking healing. It is said that simply his presence or a blessing from him could cure various ailments such as paralysis, blindness, and leprosy. Some accounts even claim that those who touched the base of his pillar were healed. Numerous stories exist of Simeon casting out demons. People possessed by evil spirits were brought to this pillar, where he would pray over them or make the sign of the cross, and the demons would leave their bodies. This gained him a reputation as an exorcist. It is said that Simeon once prayed for rain during the time of a severe drought, and his prayers were answered almost immediately. Similarly, there are accounts of him calming storms or controlling the weather through his prayers. During his early years, before he ascended the pillar, it is said that Simeon was able to miraculously multiply food for the monks and visitors in his monastery. This is reminiscent of the biblical miracles like those performed by Jesus, such as the feeding of the 5,000. Simeon is said to have performed the miracle of surviving extreme fasting. He reportedly went without food or drink for weeks, or even months at a time, living only on Eucharist bread and water provided by his disciples. His ability to survive such deprivation was considered a miracle by many who knew him. There are even legends of Simeon raising the dead, though these stories are less documented than others. In one story, a child is said to have fallen from a height near his pillar, and after prayers from Simeon, the child was revived. Simeon's ability to live in harmony with nature was also considered miraculous. There are stories of wild animals, such as lions, being tamed in his presence. Once a poisonous snake reportedly approached the pillar, but did not harm Simeon or his followers. The very act of living on top of a pillar for 37 years, exposed to the elements, without shelter, and with minimal substance, was seen as a continuous miracle. Simeon's endurance itself became a testimony to his faith and divine support. Simeon was believed to have the gift of prophecy and visions. He reportedly foresaw the future, including the outcomes of battles and political events, and provided guidance to both the common people and emperors. His prophecies were considered signs of divine favor and foresight. The miracle of conversion is attributed to him. His extreme devotion and miraculous acts led many pagans and non-believers to convert to Christianity, convinced by the wonders they witnessed. I actually legally changed my first name from Simon to Simeon, in honor of the Hermit Saint, Simeon Stylites, who lived on a pole for 40 years. I have not told you people that my mother died like a couple of months ago, and Simeon the Stylite's story of how his dying mother came to him and wanted to see his face for one last time, and of how he responded that if they were worthy, then they will see each other's face again in the world to come. I found the name unique as hell. Also, his name being pronounced See-me-on is kind of funny for a guy who lived on a pole. Simon is Hebrew for listen, but Simeon means God has heard, and that really resonated with me too. This is a 6th century depiction of Simeon on his column. A scallop shell symbolizing spiritual purity blesses Simeon. The serpent represents demonic temptations. Now, they say the serpent represents demonic temptation, but from a Gnostic perspective, It would also be something akin to the Kundalini power rising through the serpent. As long as people see themselves as finite, they will never think of the infinite. Simeon. Thank you for watching, mortals. If you enjoy this, then feel free to check out my Patreon if you would like to contribute. I will see you in the next one.